Now, this next story comes from the excellent Rider Part, who recently took a good look at Polaris's annual results and found them to contain some really rather bad news for anyone who's a fan of the more sporty side of American motorcycles. In 2024, total sales across the group were down by 20% versus 2023, and so naturally they'll look to take action to improve their fortunes, which means a serious look at the Indian lineup, which is one of their biggest brands. I guess drastic times do call for drastic measures, but I was still very surprised to read that in the footnotes of their report, they say they'll make adjustments including corporate restructuring, of course, but also the wind down of the FTR product line within the company's on-road segment. Big news and a big shame if you ask me, and while the FTR lineup is still on sale at the moment, you'll still see it on the Indian US website and the UK website as well. Well, there's not much ambiguity about the language that they've used there, and so I'd expect from the 2026 model year, perhaps we won't be seeing any FTRs at all. Rider Part responsibly wanted to clarify that statement as well, so they reached out to Polaris for a bit more detail, and they replied saying that after careful consideration, Indian Motorcycle made the decision to discontinue the FTR lineup. The decision aligns with Indian Motorcycle's long-term vision to focus on models and technologies that represent the future of the brand, as the FTR is a small part of Indian Motorcycle's overall portfolio. Now, for the uninitiated, well, the Indian lineup has over the years largely been about cruisers and heavyweight tourers, but the FTR offered something a little bit different and also a little bit more dynamic. The original inspiration came from their flat track racing program with a concept bike that certainly whet the appetite of the biking public, and while the full production version wasn't quite the same level of sexiness, it was still an exciting bike to ride with bags of power and handling and ergonomics which were, pretty true to the sort of flat track vibe, and therefore unlike anything else really on the market. I guess though that is a bit of a double-edged sword because it does give it a point of differentiation, but also it did make it a bit of an oddball that didn't really fit into any of the established categories. Indian tried to address that over the years, giving it regular rose-sized 17-inch wheels in a bit of a mid-cycle update, as opposed to the oversized flat-track rims, and that, as well as making the handling a bit more typical of a sporty naked, also opened up a better choice of sporty road tyres. Then they also dialed back the sort of flat track image in the paint jobs and went for something a bit more conventional for a naked bike, but it seems like all that effort has been in vain, with the whole lot eventually looking like it'll end up in the bin, and it does really feel like quite a shame. American manufacturers rarely seem to be rewarded for going outside their established models, with the same patterns you could argue being seen in the Harley lineup with the Livewire, the Bronx that never got made, the Sportster S doesn't seem to sell in huge volumes, the Pan America seems to have done all right, but it's not exactly a runaway success. And so while it is easy to criticize the big American brands for having a lot of heavy, old school, traditional in their tech, expensive, tourers and cruisers on sale, well, it does seem like that's the only thing that actually will sell. The FTR, in my book, was a really fun bike with 120 horsepower, 120 newton meters of peak torque, delivered with real ferocity, and also the looks made it, stand out from the crowd. But ultimately, the question is, would I buy one? And I'd say, probably not. And therein lies the problem. So a crying shame or good riddance? Let me know what you think down in the comments.